Welcome to this video, tactically analysing the RB Leipzig versus PSG game. We're trying our best to reduce the number of points discussed during the video, so look for the complete tactical notes in the description down below as well as in the comments. Before we get into it, please give the video a like if you enjoy the content, and with that, let's get into it. Leipzig typically played in a 3-2-5 shape, although later in the game they moved to a 3-1-2-4. But here we see that back line of Guardiola, Simakan and Orban, protected by Adams primarily, as well as also Lima. I say primarily Adams because Lima was often moving into this position to help overload this area versus Mendes. Lima moving out into that space and helping Mukiele allows Nkunku and Forsberg to be able to come inside. Despite the width that the 3-2-5 gave RB Leipzig, Paris Saint-Germain were typically able to deal with it because of their three centre midfielders in Pereira, Ngay and Wijnaldum, because they were really good at stepping into the space between the fullback and centre-back for Paris Saint-Germain and prevent the likes of Forsberg or Nkunku or Andre Silva being able to take advantage of that huge gap between the centre-back and full-back. These three needed to be really switched on because the front three of Paris Saint-Germain were typically leaving all of the defensive work to the back seven. On Angelino's side, they also used overloads with the forwards, but he was also quick to whip in balls for runners in behind. Regardless of whether RB Leipzig were playing in the 3-1-2-4 or this 3-2-5, they were always playing very direct, very vertical. So we can see here Adams covering for his left centre-back in Guardiola, who's stepped into the space that was free, but then passed back to Orban. And again, we can see Lima setting up to try and take advantage of that space in that right-hand channel. And the Leipzig forwards being narrow and looking to potentially run in behind. So here in the next phase, RB Leipzig have been able to draw Paris Saint-Germain a little bit higher up the pitch, creating this ton of space for them to exploit. Although I should mention that Donnarumma was quick to sweep when RB Leipzig were able to get in behind. This is a good example of the verticality that we mentioned earlier, where RB Leipzig are moving the ball very quickly between the lines, going straight for the jugular. And of course, RB Leipzig, whenever they could, were getting their wing-backs involved in their attacks as well. Another means of attack for RB Leipzig were their throw-ins deep in Paris Saint-Germain's defensive third. It's a rough 3-2-5 again. You've got your wide centre-backs very high up the pitch and counter-pressing positions. You wouldn't be remiss to see the central centre-back for RB Leipzig in Simakan actually being maybe 10 yards or so inside the Paris Saint-Germain half when RB Leipzig had sustained possession in PSG's half. So back to the throw-ins. RB Leipzig, after taking the throw, would usually switch because the far side wing back would be free due to the fact that Paris Saint-Germain tried to compress the near side where the throw-in was taken. This is a great phase of play because it highlights what we mentioned in just how aggressive the wide centre-back and centre-back were for RB Leipzig. It also shows Lima making a recovery run from the space I mentioned he wanted to try and attack. It also is a good example of Paris Saint-Germain pressing on pass-backs. RB Leipzig were able to evade Paris Saint-Germain's press while still maintaining their 3-2-5 shape, as well as the width of their wing-backs. Again, you have the forwards of RB Leipzig threatening in behind, as well as one dropping off to provide the short passing option too. And finally, we see the pass into Angelino, the far-sided wingback, with tons of space around him for him to look to take advantage of, because the Paris Saint-Germain centre midfield were forced to cover across. I think this is a really great phase of play because it encapsulates RB Leipzig's formation and as well as also PSG's tactic. So we start with RB Leipzig in possession with their back three, and they've got Adam as their CDM with Haidara and Szoboszlai ahead as like 3/8s, with Lima and Angelino as the wing backs providing the width. It isn't news at this point, but PSG centre midfield are expected to hold things down and plug the gaps left by the PSG forward line not dropping off as quickly as one might like. Although PSG's forwards did try and press or harry the back line. So in this phase, Guardiola has just passed the ball into Adams, and his two centre midfield partners in Szoboszlai and Haidara are making movements a little bit higher up the pitch. I would say that Szoboszlai was the most attacking of the three, often looking to try and run beyond his forwards or into positions on the edge of the box so that he could shoot. Yet another switch of play by RB Leipzig to take advantage of the fact that there is so much space either side of the Paris Saint-Germain midfield. So whilst not as coordinated as some of the best pressing teams in Europe, Paris Saint-Germain's forwards do press on occasion, and we see that here with Neymar dropping back to win the ball off Lima and get it to Pereira. RB Leipzig immediately look to try and counter press, and we see that in both the forward line as well as also the centre backs. And this is the next phase when Paris Saint-Germain burst into life and looked to counter-attack. And this is why I said that this minute or so encapsulates the game so well. Paris Saint-Germain sought to counter with a front three as well as also Wijnaldum and Hakimi when possible. As mentioned earlier, Simikan could be found 10 yards or so inside the Paris Saint-Germain half when RB Leipzig were in possession. Given the raw pace that Paris Saint-Germain had in this game, it was really surprising that they were quite as wasteful as they were given the number and quality of chances that they had. So other than pressing pass backs or trying to counter-attack, Paris Saint-Germain looked to have Neymar or Angel Di Maria drop from the front line and provide themselves as an option short. Neymar did it more in the first half, and in the second half, I say Angel Di Maria was given that responsibility a little bit more. When they dropped, Wijnaldum would try and push up in sync, so he could potentially take advantage of the space vacated by one of the RB Leipzig players tracking the run of the dropping forward. Notice well RB Leipzig's 5-3-2 press. RB Leipzig's 5-3-2 press would often leave the far-sided defenders free. Note how Pereira, the central defensive midfielder, has dropped to become a central centre-back, which allows Marquinhos and Kimpembe to be able to push wider, and it allows the fullbacks to push up the pitch into wing-back positions, whilst Ngay and Wijnaldum hold down the centre midfield. Here we see Mbappe on the shoulder of the defensive line. Him as well as Di Maria were constantly looking to get in behind and would often be hit early. And here finally we see Neymar dropping to receive a short pass from the defence, whilst Lima and Mukiele try and press so that they're forced out wide. Eventually we see Paris Saint-Germain work the ball to Pereira, who tries to fire it into Wijnaldum, who's pushed higher as Neymar dropped. But Guardiola, the left-sided centre-back, is quick to read this and step in to intercept. And finally, Paris Saint-Germain, once they went ahead, were happy to build up in a 2-3-3-2, where the back line would spread out and you'd have the fullbacks holding the width. They sought to draw the 3-4-2-1 press of RB Leipzig up the pitch, and then they'd look to play a longer ball, typically into Neymar, but he'd have the likes of Wijnaldum and Angel Di Maria normally very close to him so that they could combine and get past which one of the centre-backs or centre midfielders were looking to try and pressure them. And from there, having evaded the RB Leipzig press, there was a lot of space for them to be able to run into. Okay, and that covers the tactical analysis. And with that, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and with that, we're out.